Every culture in recorded history has developed their own musical tradition. So I've got an idea that I want to riff on in this video, and that idea is... Dude, do you think the ocean is salty because the land never waves back? In all seriousness though, there's not a lot of things in the world that are like as universal as music. Like, I'd be willing to bet that there's a lot of people who don't really identify as being all that into music, but probably hear music on a regular basis. Like, most of the time when you're driving in the car, you're listening to music. When you're watching TV and there's an advertisement, there's usually some sort of music in the advertisement. Watching sports, you've got the national anthems of whatever country or countries are competing. On the topic of sports, athletes generally listen to music when they warm up before an event. A lot of people listen to music when they cook, and on top of that, our movies and our video games also usually have music. In fact, some of them are actually about musicians and music and stuff. So all of that taken into consideration, the fact that you can find music anywhere in the world, and that music is basically an inescapable part of at least American life. I know it is for me. It seems strange then that music just isn't treated with the same degree of academic rigor as, say, math or whatever the native language of the country you live in is, you know? And I would argue that since music is something that you're much more likely to encounter than a lot of those things, that maybe it should be. So for years, if not decades now, the great cellist and classical musician Yo-Yo Ma has toured with, I think it's an orchestra, but he's also got dancers and there's a large visual aspect of it. But he's been advocating that in addition to the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math that is already taught in schools, that we add an A for art. So instead of STEM, we have STEAM. And in theory, I think that's a really good idea. But the thing about Yo-Yo Ma, like I just said, is that he's a classical musician, and a lot of the art that he advocates for tends to be very Eurocentric. And the problems with Eurocentrism is really a topic for a whole other video, and Adam Neely's already covered it much better than I ever could as it relates to music specifically, so I'll link that up in a corner and in the description. But my big problem with Eurocentric art, in addition to all of the other things that Adam Neely talks about in his video, as it relates to education and shaping young minds and stuff, is that it tends to de-emphasize personal expression. And that's a giant oversimplification. Instead, I think schools should teach styles of music that emphasize things like improvisation and listening and personal expression and creativity more. And I'm biased because I kind of started with blues guitar and then got into jazz and studied jazz primarily in college and stuff. And I could beat you over the head with statistics to prove my point, but that's really more Adam Neely's thing, so I'm gonna let him do that instead. But I just kind of feel like if I did want to go into statistics and stuff, you would find that people who spend a lot of time on the practice and study of musical improvisation probably have higher cognitive abilities. Not necessarily that they're smarter, but their brains just work a little bit faster. I'm sure that you could find studies that connect improvisation with critical thinking skills and pattern recognition. But even if none of those things are true, you'd be hard pressed to find someone, I think, who regrets learning music. All the people I went to school with are obviously musicians and very good musicians. And the thing about musicians is that there's just something compelling us to do it that we don't understand, that we can't really articulate. We just have a compulsive need to make music. But even people who don't feel that compulsive need to make music, I think Purple Car would probably enjoy learning about it, provided that it's taught the right way. I don't know anyone who regrets learning anything about music. And considering that it is this universal form of communication, even if it's hard to quantify, I'm sure that that the wider availability of music and music education would be a net positive for the world. And even though music can sound drastically different depending on the part of the world that you live in, it still is pretty cool that I could go pretty much anywhere with my guitar and play something like a major triad, or a major pentatonic scale, or a mixolydian scale, and people would get it. There are certain aspects of music, like those things, that are fairly universal. So even though I might not have the right instrument for a certain style of music, I could still go to like a different part of the world and probably have a meaningful musical interaction with the people there. And I'm probably getting a little too idealistic here and a little too optimistic, but considering all of those universal elements, if music was a bigger part of foreign policy, maybe we could achieve something close to world peace. Like, at the time of recording this video, that seems a little far-fetched. For those watching in the future, I'm filming this in early July of 2021. Like, where I live, we're just reopening after the event of the previous year that shall not be named so that I don't get demonetized. And as far as global geopolitics go, the atmosphere is tense, to say the least. So as of right now, the mixolydian scale might not be enough to achieve world peace, but maybe in the future. All that being said though, I still feel like there's a lot of problems with music education, at least in America, as it currently exists, which is a big part of why I'm starting this channel, because a lot of my teachers think that I'd make a good teacher, and I don't know, but I'll take their word for it. They've been doing it longer than me, and they think that I have ways of explaining things that just are kind of better. So a few weeks ago, I had a piano lesson, and my teacher asked me how I would explain an altered dominant chord and an altered dominant scale. And after I explained it, he's like, wow man, I think I'm gonna start explaining it like that from now on. Like, part of what I want to do with this channel is just like push back a bit against some of the established conventions of music education. Because one thing's for sure, a lot of it did not work for me. I struggled for maybe my first year and a half before I kind of found my groove, hit my stride, however you want to describe it. The thing is, a lot of music education, both at the collegiate level and higher levels and lower levels, is very one size fits all. There's just not the time or the resources to really tailor the curriculum to each student. And, you know, that's not a problem with the music education system per se. I think that we need more funding for education in general. But one thing's for sure, it certainly does not do any favors to people who are looking to get into music and learn more about music. Alright, I'm on a less busy road now, so I have resumed filming. Now, there's probably some people saying, you know, yeah, music would be fun to teach in school and fun to learn about, but it's just not very practical. Like, when are people gonna use it? And that's valid, you know? Music and art in general could be more lucrative if we designed our society to make more different career paths valid. But anyway, the only reason why careers in the arts aren't very lucrative career paths is because we built our society to be that way. And if we wanted to, we could build it any way we wanted to. And there's a lot of consensus across the political spectrum that right now we do need to rebuild our society. It's just the part of why things are so tense right now is because no one can agree on what that society should look like. And I'm not going to get into my political beliefs because that's not the focus of my channel. And if you want to know what they are, I mean, I literally wear them as badges on my guitar straps. So just zoom in, I guess. But I definitely think that creating a society that values art more would be a net positive. Anyway, yeah, I think that sums up what I want to say. That's my video mission statement.